Well, it was the 71st United Nations General Assembly and the world took notice of how Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif used Kashmir as a shield to brush off the Uri attack as well as infiltration bids which killed 18 of our jawans. In his speech, he openly glorified a terrorist, Burhan Wani, who's responsible, of course, for the death of countless innocent Kashmiris. Despite the international community clearly shunning and criticizing Pakistan for proxy wars as well as state-sponsored terror activities, the Pakistan Prime Minister relentlessly spoke about the Kashmir tension. Here's more.
A vain attempt by the Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif to shield his nation's involvement in terror activities. An unimpressive 20-minute speech glorifying a terrorist and rigging up the Kashmir unrest at the UN. Despite relentless opposition by the international community, Sharif at the 71st UN General Assembly speech armored himself with Kashmir choosing silence on the brazen terror attack in Uri and subsequent infiltration bids.
This indigenous uprising of the Kashmiris have been met as usual with brutal repression by India's occupation force of over 500,000 soldiers.
Mimicking his 2015 UN General Assembly speech, Pakistan's hypocrisy does not end there. Sharif hailed the slain Kashmiri terrorist Burhan Wani as a young leader who fought for freedom.
Burhan Wani, the young leader murdered by Indian forces, has emerged as a symbol of the latest Kashmiri Intifada, a popular and peaceful freedom movement led by Kashmiris.
The rattled Pakistani Prime Minister connivingly played the victim card, spelling out details of the brutal military operation on the country's western frontier. He said his forces were engaged in a massive war with terrorists.
My country has been the principal victim of terrorism, including that supported, sponsored and financed from abroad. We will not allow externally sponsored terrorism and threats of destabilization to cause turbulence in Pakistan.
The speech ended with the proposal of a dialogue between both the countries to endorse a peaceful resolution to a strained relationship. Interestingly, before his speech, Pakistani Army Chief Nawaz Sharif had called the Pakistani Prime Minister to ensure that Kashmir is an integral part of the speech. This raises a serious question. Is the Pakistani Army holding the baton for the government? Bureau Report, India Today.
Our Deputy Editor Smita Sharma now joins us live from Hawaii with more details on the story. Smita, it was pretty much a Kashmir rhetoric that we saw Nawaz Sharif going down to at the end of the day at the UNGA address, but also at the same time, how will this reflect in the international community? Do you think Nawaz Sharif's address will really have any sort of development per se?
Look, Akshita, it's not Nawaz Sharif's first attempt or Pakistan's first attempt to try and internationalize the Kashmir issue. But we've heard the responses, from all the countries, be it the UK to the US. Every time they have said that this is a bilateral issue that India and Pakistan must resolve amongst each other. So basically, the countries have refused to intervene. Even in fact, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, he has, of course, addressed the Kashmir issue by saying that there are serious concerns about the situation in the valley, that they must be addressed, that the peace is needed in the valley. But at the same time, even the UN, despite repeated attempts by the Pakistanis to try and ask for some sort of an international mediation, it hasn't happened. So this is not going to really, cut through as far as the international, in fact, global community is concerned. But yes, this definitely does address the domestic audience as far as Nawaz Sharif is concerned, his army chief, his establishment and his domestic audience, for which Kashmir still acts as a glue where he keeps on harping the K word.
Right. Smita, also, considering all that Nawaz Sharif said really, and as you pointed out, this seemed more like that he was addressing his own domestic audience per se. Do you really think he scored a self-goal of sorts by speaking out on terror and saying that really Pakistan has managed to address terror at a time, this is days after an attack in Uri?
What is ironical is very recently, in fact, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi tried isolating Pakistan during his trip to Vietnam and then, of course, to G20 and the East Asia Summit. And they said that there is this one country in the neighborhood that continues to, of course, finance terror and terror outfits as well. Pakistan responded by saying that country is actually India, and as a proof, they spoke about Kulbhushan Jadhav, remember the Indian who has been in Pakistani custody under charges of spying and whom Pakistan has still not provided consular access to India for. So for the international community, there is a growing level of frustration which is reflected in their statements. Along the sidelines of the UNGA, the India, US and Afghan impact trilateral meeting has just been resumed. The officials have met. So even in terms of stabilizing Afghanistan, the role that Pakistan has been playing, Americans are now tired. They do not want their taxpayers' money to be wasted on Islamabad if the promises turn out poor.
Right. Smita, I request you to stay on with us. For viewers who are just joining us, possibly one of the biggest points that Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif made was on a slain terrorist Burhan Wani in a frail attempt clearly to internationalize the Kashmir tensions in India. He brought up Burhan Wani and glorified him at the United Nations General Assembly. In fact, Nawaz Sharif mentioned Burhan Wani, referring to him as a young hero in the valley who fought for the freedom of the Kashmiri people. This was despite a relentless opposition from the world condemning the Uri attacks. The Pakistan Prime Minister raised issues which alludes to the Pakistan hypocrisy, refusing to issue any sort of statement or comment on the Uri attack. Here's a detailed report.
हमारे बहुत से नौजवान साथी शहादत भी पा गए। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह रब्बिल आलमीन की शहादत से इस तहरीक को बहुत फ़ायदा मिला और हमारे हौसलों को भी महमियत बख्शी उनकी शहादत ने।
This is slain terrorist Burhan Wani's self-admission days before he was killed in a gunfight with security forces in South Kashmir. Admission that he is a terrorist and believes in violence. Take a listen once again.
कश्मीर के सारी आवाम, खासकर नौजवान कौम का शुक्रगुजार हूँ कि वो हर वक्त अपनी जान पर खेलकर मुजाहिद को सेफ रखने की कोशिश करते हैं। इंडियन आर्मी तो ऑलरेडी हमारी दुश्मन है ये, लेकिन पुलिस वाले हमारे अपने होकर भी हमें मजबूर करते हैं कि हम उन पर कार्रवाई करें।
If this is not proof enough, hear from the dreaded terror chief and Mumbai carnage mastermind hailing Hizbul terrorist Wani.
बुरहान वानी की शहादत हुई, 3 लाख कश्मीरी उसके जनाजे के लिए निकले।
And now listen to a new low in the citadel of world nations. This is a cornered Pakistan Prime Minister hailing Burhan Wani, who inflicted terror on people in Jammu and Kashmir.
Burhan Wani, the young leader murdered by Indian forces, has emerged as a symbol of the latest Kashmiri Intifada, a popular and peaceful freedom movement led by Kashmiris.
No wonder this diplomatic blunder did not go unnoticed. India's junior foreign minister MJ Akbar tore into the Pakistan Prime Minister's brazen hailing of the terrorist.
Burhan Wani is a self-declared commander of the Hizbul Mujahideen. It was shocking that a leader of a nation can glorify a self-declared, a self-advertised terrorist.
With days to go for the country's senior foreign minister Sushma Swaraj to address the UN General Assembly, India will surely have the abundance of diplomatic arsenal to fire at terror sponsor Pakistan. Bureau Report, India Today.